Hey everybody, this is Minion Soldier and this is Ship Updates. Now, CitizenCon has just happened and of course there was this, ship. Apparently it's kind of popular. The Polaris? Yeah, so that got released. Now, I originally got one of those emails on Friday for the pre-sale. I did not opt into the pre-sale. I wanted more information. So I had to go and watch CitizenCon and get some more information there. And of course, we're going to have Q&As. The threads are the thread is already up for the questions. We'll see how those questions get answered, and that'll give us a lot more idea about where their minds are at with the Polaris. But I think it is notable to say that they referred to it as having "quote unquote" blazing speed in the CitizenCon presentation. So how fast is this thing gonna be? Especially with the speed refactor that's coming in 2.6, which we'll get to in a second. I don't know. But to my mind, when I'm looking at that ship right now and I'm looking at the stats on it, it looks pretty damn effective. There was nothing out there that really kind of with most ships, there's always kind of something that I kind of go, I don't know about that. And at first, when I saw that it was torpedo, like the main weaponry was torpedoes, I went, okay, so are we doing like a Retaliator-esque thing with this ship? But when I actually looked at it, and of course, using the new sizing system, the Retaliator is currently firing size 3 torpedoes, and this thing is firing size 6 torpedoes, and there's basically 4 in the tubes and 24 in the racks. That's a heck of a lot of armament. Now, there's plus sides and downsides to torpedoes. I myself was someone who would have leaned more towards guns, but I'm willing to wait for the Q&As and find out more information. And obviously we don't know what kind of torpedoes we're going to get. Are there going to be AoE torpedoes, or are there going to be, basically fire and forget torpedoes? A lot of information that we're going to need in order to really start theory crafting and start looking at this thing, under the microscope. But first glance at the stats and everything, the ship looks pretty damn good. Appearance-wise, at first I wasn't too crazy about the hangar bay, the big hangar deck. You can see it up on screen here now. It kind of looked like a big open bland space, but then I thought, shit, you could put a big fat like org logo on there, maybe, like depending on what kind of decal or decal or however you want to refer to it. If you could do something like that and put something on there, and of course different coloring options. It looks like a really good ship, and even though appearance is something that I really consider completely secondary to actual stats and performance, this was a ship that I looked at it and I went, that kind of reminds me of the Defiant from Deep Space Nine. And the more I looked at the stats and they're talking about blazing speed, I said, Jesus, it's almost like someone was sitting there going, oh, here's my chance to get the Defiant in game, and that's what they did. And so we'll have to wait and see on more of the discussion in regards to this ship. But in a weird way, like, I'm going to get through all the other ship updates, and then I'm going to kind of come back to the Polaris, because there was one really kind of ironic, funny thing about the Polaris and about the rest of the presentation. It was something that, it started to really kind of kick off in my mind, especially when I rewatched the presentation last night, and I went, oh, wait, oops. But we'll get to that in a second. Anyways, we got a ton of updates in regards to other ships. Now, of course, 2.6 is not out yet, but that's really no shocker, because it hadn't been out for public testing yet. So I think it's pretty safe to assume that we weren't going to get it anytime around CitizenCon. I mean, honestly, we were going to end up waiting for that we would have had it, we would have been probably testing it for 2 weeks if we were going to see it by now. But no real timeline yet on when it's going to be delivered, hopefully before the end of the month, but chances are probably mid-November. Now, of course, 3.0, fingers crossed before the end of the year, but you never know. But 3.0 is going to include the Ursa rover, the Drake Dragonfly, the Drake Caterpillar, and the Connie Aquila, which is pretty damn huge. So I cannot wait to break out my Caterpillar and fly around in that thing and start testing out much larger ships, which of course will in some way be a little bit reference material into more combat driven ships. Of course the Starfarer is out now, but I think the Caterpillar is a little bit more geared towards going on the offensive a little bit in terms of piracy, so we'll have to wait. But of course the Connie Aquila, that's a pretty cool thing. And then later on in 3.1, Cutlass Red and Cutlass Blue are coming out. Now the interesting thing about that is, of course, we know that the Cutlass Black should at this time be getting its its refactor, its remodel, however you want to call it. So if that, it kind of doesn't make sense to do the red and the blue if they're not going to be the basis for the other ones. And of course, Josh Kuhn said that, finishing the Cutlass Black will make the red and blue go that much faster. So somewhere sandwiched in there, though it was conspicuously missing, I think the Cutlass Black should be in there as well. Though we'll have to wait and see. That's speculation on my part, but we'll have to wait and see. Anyways, also included in that is the Hull C, the Prospector, and the Origin 85X. So 3.1 is looking like a pretty sweet release. Now, of course, we get one of the Hull series, but we didn't find out about any of the other ones. So there might be a lot of shared assets, so the other ones might go quicker, but the Hull C is the only one that we know about right now. And of course, the Origin 85X, when myself were watching the presentation, it was funny to hear the comment, well, okay, what about my 890 jump? And we found out about the 890 jump, but it won't be the next patch, which is 3.2, which is when the Taurus and the Connie Phoenix both are released into the game. So there's a lot of Phoenix owners potentially. Possibly not that many anymore, but we'll get to that. Also, the Anvil Terrapin, the Vanguard Harbinger and Sentinel, and once again, when we were all watching this on Discord, when I saw it and I just shouted, I was like, Reclaimer! The Reclaimer in 3.2. That got me very excited, so I can't wait to break that out. That is going to be a big, big release. In 3.3, we have the Carrack and the 890 jump to look forward to. And finally, crawling across the finish line after all this time, supposedly, the Banu Merchantman, and also all the variants of the Reliant. But the Banu Merchantman, I mean, we've heard it before, but it looks like the Banu Merchantman owners, if there are any still out there, will be getting their ship in 3.3. And then finally, in 4.0, which will also include jumping to other systems, you will have the Orion, which is the large mining ship, and the Anvil Crucible, which is the repair ship. Now, of course, I did skim over all the gameplay features, mining, salvage, missions, piracy, all that stuff, because mainly I kind of focus on the ship updates, and then I kind of leave the piracy show to kind of deal with more of the gameplay related elements. But that is a pretty huge and pretty aggressive schedule. Now, sadly, we did find out that Squadron 42 is once again going to be delayed, but really no big shocker there. But given the, I would say, aggressive nature of this production schedule, it kind of leads me to believe that at least the ship portion, if not done, is getting very close to being done, because there's a couple of standouts here that I kind of want to talk about. Mainly the Hull C and the Reclaimer. Now, there's a lot of smaller ships that they haven't really been working on, or they have done some work on. The Connie variants, for instance, they've done some work on the base Connie, which basically expands out to the other ones. You know, the Drake Dragonfly isn't exactly a huge, very complex ship, but the Reclaimer and the Hull C are two unique hulls and two very large ships. So for the Reclaimer to be included in 3.2, and I'm presuming 3.2 as a finished ship, that kind of tells me that at that point they pretty much believe that they're going to be entirely done with the Squadron 42 ships, and they can throw all that weight behind these big ships. Because even though I'm excited for the Reclaimer, that to me, when I saw that, I was like, really? 3.2? That soon? But then again, 3.2 could be next March. 3.2 could be more likely next September. We don't know. But the fact that they're being so aggressive with the schedule, especially like the 890 jump as well, and then the Orion and 4.0, I mean, if these are their goals for next year, that's pretty damned impressive. That pretty much ticks almost all the boxes, except for, of course, the Redeemer, which is kind of in limbo. But I think the Redeemer is going to be kind of like the Cutlass Black, and it's going to squeeze itself in there. But, we'll just have to wait and see on that. Now, I kind of want to come back now to the Polaris. And one of the funny things, the ironic thing about the whole presentation is, of course, they're talking about all these great ships. And everyone's, everyone's excited to finally see these ships in game, and that's great. The thing of it is, with the Polaris sale, of course, I did not participate in the pre-sale, but I was watching the serial numbers go up, and at the time that I was taking down all my notes for this show, there had been, by my count, 1.8 million and change worth of Polaris pre-sales that had been sold. And that was just the pre-sales. So clearly, this ship has found a very small fan following within the community. And, given that it's now out for open sale and Meltageddon has begun, there are clearly going to be a lot of frickin' Polarises in the Star Citizen universe. And so the ironic thing about all these updates is how many of these ships are really left out there, because there's probably a lot of people who are like now on the fence saying, oh man, maybe I can get my Reclaimer in 3.2, but why don't I just go for a Polaris? And possibly the other thing is the Polaris, which is not, of course, on the schedule, so not something that they're saying that you're going to see in 2017. But when I was watching the presentation, of course, the Polaris was a hard sell. It really was. They kind of went all out with that ship, and with the pre-sale and with everything, they really drove up the excitement, and they really sold the ship well. They're very enthusiastic about it, not like, well, this is more for these people, and this ship is more for those people. This was like almost a universal appeal ship, and for me, it invoked imagery of the Defiant Deep Space Nine. So it was like, wow, okay, that was almost custom built for me. But now that I'm kind of looking at it, I'm thinking, it's great that you're getting all these ships in, but now, that people are going to be climbing all over you going, so how's the Polaris doing? So how's the Polaris coming along? And I think that to a certain degree, that CIG with this ship, kind of painted themselves into a little bit of a corner. And it's going to be interesting to see if the Polaris doesn't kind of leapfrog into next year's schedule just to calm the fans down, because obviously there's a lot of excited people out there. So that is pretty much it for the ship portion of all of that. Now, of course, we're going to break down a lot of the gameplay features over the next few piracy shows and discuss some of that stuff. And then next week's this week's ship updates, the next one on Friday, when things return back to normal. We're going to take the info that we can, glean from the Q&A, and we'll discuss the Polaris again and whatever ship updates there may be between now and then, though I feel that is going to be, there isn't going to be much. I think they pretty much gave us everything they got in that presentation. But we'll wait and see. Hopefully we'll get some nice stuff with the next Around the Verse. But time will tell. So yeah, that's just about it for ship updates this week. Hopefully, we'll be getting a lot of interesting information. Of course, we do have the Herald to look at in 2.6, and of course the Vanguard Hoplite. Oh, I'm sorry, what was that? Did I get a Polaris? Well, oh, sorry. Kind of looks like my game crashed. Oh well, I'll be back later. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the episode, and thanks for watching.
Quantum travel initiated.